Stephen Fry on political correctness. You guys know Stephen Fry? I assume you do. Hopefully it'll be fun. Stephen Fry's the GOAT. I do agree that he's pretty cool. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens.
There are many people who choose incorrectly, in my view, to see this issue in terms of left and right, devalued and exploded terms, as I think they are, will believe that I am betraying myself in such causes and values that I have espoused over the years. I've been given huge grief already simply because I'm standing here next to Professor Peterson, which is the very reason that I am standing here.
Is that Jordan Peterson? Stephen Fry's in Blackadder? Isn't it Hugh Laurie who's in Blackadder?
Resentment, hostility, intolerance.
That is Jordan Peterson. It's not going to be funny. I thought it was going to be light and funny. Rowan Atkinson's doing it. I'm not a fan of Blackadder either, though. Don't hate me.
Nail my colours to the mast before I get any further than this. It's only polite to give you a sense of where I come from. I'm a soft lefty, a liberal with the most hand-wringing milksop, milk toast variety. Not a burning man the barricade socialist, not even really a progressive worth the name. I've been on marches, but I've never quite dared wave placards or banners. I don't think highly of social injustice, I have to say, but I character myself mostly as a social justice warrior. Intellectual heroes growing up were Bertrand Russell and G.E. Moore, liberal thinkers, people like that, writers like E.M. Forster. I believed, and I think I still do believe, in the sanctity of human relations, the primacy of the heart, and friendship, and love, and common interest.
Agree.
These are more personal, interior beliefs than they are political exterior convictions, more a humanistic version of a religious impulse, I suppose. I trust in humanity, I believe in humanity, I think I do, despite all that has happened in the 40 years of my adulthood. I am soft and I can easily be swept away by harder hearts and harder intellects. I'm sometimes surprised to be described as an activist, but over time I have energetically involved myself with what you might call causes. I grew up knowing that I was gay. Well, in fact, from the very first I knew I was gay. I remember when I was born looking up and saying, that's the last time I'm going up one of those. I'm Jewish, so I have a natural obvious horror of racism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, bullying, bigotry, intolerance of all human kinds to end. But that's surely a given amongst all of us. The question is how such a golden aim is to be achieved. My ultimate objection to political correctness is not that it combines so much of what I have spent a lifetime loathing and opposing, preachiness, with great respect, piety, self-righteousness, heresy hunting, denunciation, shaming, assertion without evidence, accusation, inquisition, censoring. That's not why I'm incurring the wrath of my fellow liberals by standing on this side of the House. My real objection is that I don't think political correctness works.
Agree.
I want to get to the Golden Hill, but I don't think that's the way to get there. I believe one of the greatest human failings is to prefer to be right than to be effective.
Agree.
Correctness is always obsessed with how right it is without thinking of how effective it might be. I wouldn't class myself as a classical libertarian, but I do relish transgression.
And there's a lot of people that have a lot to say and just don't know how to say it, or they don't have enough information about the subject to be politically correct, and they're not trying to be offensive. Some people are, though, but some aren't.
And skeptics. I may be wrong. I hope to learn this evening. I really do think I may be wrong, but I'm prepared to entertain the possibility that political correctness will bring us more tolerance. And a best quotation from my hero Bertrand Russell to hover over the evening. One of the painful things about our time is that those who feel certainty are stupid, and those with any imagination and understanding are filled with doubt and indecision. Let doubt prevail.
That was good. Not surprised.
It's interesting to hear that there really doesn't seem to be a problem, but yet I think we all instinctively know that there is some kind of problem. There isn't censorship. Of course not, in the way that there is in Russia. I've been to Russia, I've faced off with political correctness in Russia. It's just political correctness on the right. And that's what I grew up with, political correctness which meant that you couldn't say certain things on television. You couldn't say fuck, for example, on television, because it was incorrect to do so. And as always, the same reason was that someone would appear and say, I'm not shocked. Oh, of course, no, I'm not shocked. I'm not offended. I'm offended on behalf of others, young, impressionable, plastic minds, the vulnerable. And that's not. So often people are saying, see, I don't mind being called a faggot or a kike, because I don't mind people insulting me. And people say, well, that's all right for you, Stephen, because you're strong. Well, I don't feel particularly strong. And I don't know that I like being called a faggot and a kike particularly. I don't believe that the advances in my culture that have allowed me to marry, as I've had now been for 3 years, to someone of my gender, I don't believe they are a result of political correctness. And maybe political correctness is actually just some sort of live trout that the Hardewi Indian movement, he said, oh, for God's sake, call me an Indian, or a Lakota Sioux, or Russell. I don't care what you call me, it's how we're treated that matters. And so I'm really addressing a more popular idea. Also, actually, in Barrow, Alaska, an Inupiat said, call me an Eskimo. It's obviously easier for you because you keep mispronouncing Inupiat. Words do matter. I'll just end with a quick story. Gay rights came about in England because we slowly and persistently knocked on the door of people in power. We didn't shout, we didn't scream. People like Ian McKellen eventually got to see the Prime Minister. And when the Queen signed in the Royal Assent, as she has to, for the bill allowing equality of marriage, she said, Lord, I couldn't imagine this in 1953. Really is extraordinary, isn't it? Just wonderful.
Amen to that. We could all do with a little more humanity in the world.
Still very lost about why we aren't talking about political correctness. We're talking about politics, and that's fine. And I share exactly what you think about it. I'm not an enemy of identity politics per se. I can obviously see where it goes wrong, where it's annoying. Let's be empirical about this. How well is it working for you in America at the moment? Not well at all. Really isn't. You can answer me in a moment.
Trying to corral people into doing what they think is right, a small minority think is right, instead of trying to do what's best for the actual people involved.
If you have a point of view, fight it in the proper manner, using democracy as it should be, not channels of education, not language. It's so silly.
Because not everybody can communicate in the same level, not everybody has the same amount of intelligence or education.
At the moment, you're being recruiting sergeants for the right, but by annoying and upsetting, and instead fighting, either fighting or persuading. But political correctness is a middle course that simply doesn't work. Of course, I recognise the bestiality of Weinstein and the monstrosity, but for pretty obvious reasons. Grotesque, and I can't imagine how violent it must be for such a powerful man, and he was. I used to play a game at the Cannes Film Festival where, in his years of power, we're walking from one hotel at the end there, all the way up to the Palais de Festival. You would get 10 points every time you heard the word Harvey. Usually, at a 10-minute walk, you'd have because it was, Harvey's got the script, Harvey's got it. I've got a meeting with Harvey at the Majestic there. He was immensely powerful, and I think that's obvious that someone in that position abusing grotesque in the extreme. But I have to tell you, there is genuine feeling amongst many people I know who speak to the true nuance, the true depth of sexual, romantic feeling between men and women. It's not a subject I'm absolutely expert on, but it counts between men and men as well, though I know when it's men and men, you might say, well, that's different because women have had a different experience in history, and I don't want to enter that particular field, but I would say that there is real fear in my business, which is where this all started, show business, acting, and so on. People are rather afraid to speak about a piece of publicity that's come out or a statement that's been made. You just go, yeah, absolutely, and wait for the people to leave the room before you can speak honestly with your friends. I've never experienced that in my entire 60 years. This feeling that, and I'm not characterising feminists as East German, but it's like that, the Stasi are listening. You better be careful, they're listening. And that's a genuine feeling. I'm saying that with my hand on my heart. I'm not saying it to make a point other than the fact that it's true and it's worrying. But the sexual misadventures and horror experience is worrying too. So the two worries. I think people look at it.
He makes a really, really good point, and I agree with him. And I think, from my perspective, I feel like this is what he's saying. This is what I'm taking from it anyways. That there are a lot of people who are like PC police and will jump on you for not saying exactly the right phrase or the exact right word, even though you're actually trying to involve yourself, educate yourself, find out information, instead of you aren't trying to offend anybody. I find that happens a lot with me. I'm not trying to offend anyone, and I'm not trying to necessarily be negative, but I don't know a lot of stuff and I don't understand a lot of it. And so I might use a word or a phrase or a figure of speech that, from where I'm from, or in my little circle, doesn't offend anybody, but will offend somebody on the outside. So sometimes I think you have to realize that where the person's coming from, and that it might not be an intentional thing. And it doesn't mean you can't take the opportunity to educate them, but you have to forgive them. You can't just jump on them. You know what I mean? You have to give them a chance, have the conversation, find out where they're coming from or why they say that, or explain to them, hey, that's offensive here. You can't say that, because of this, and this, because they might not know. I find that with a lot of people, and I find that with myself when I'm trying to learn things, and I overcompensate sometimes because I don't want to offend people. So I'm like, I'll say, I will not ask questions that I would want to ask just because I want to learn, because I'm afraid it's going to offend someone. So I totally understand what he's saying.
And wonder why political correctness. I've said it's slippery. It's very interesting to hear talk about race and about gender and about equality, and it's something that I've thought about a lot and I can learn a great deal about, but that's not why I came to this debate. I was interested in what I've always been interested in, the suppression of language and thought, the closing down, the rationalist idea that seems beguiling, that if you limit people's language, you may somehow teach them a different way of thinking. Something that delighted the inventors of Georgia Newspeak, for example. And it seems to me it's just implausible. It doesn't work. And that's what I mean by empirical. It doesn't stand an empirical test. It isn't experientially validated, as we see from the political landscape now, and I worry that we may in the future. So I'm sort of disappointed that the subject has just revolved around academia, which was predictable, because that's the sort of progress. That's what you're supposed to be arguing. I want to know what you mean by particular names. That's not the point. I'm scared. If I'm listening, that's the point.
You're scared. Right. I'm scared because I don't want to fear. What I'm saying is that it's a feeling. It's a feeling that is this sort of intangible reality.
We've all seen the sort of show trial thing where the person then apologizes. I have so much to learn about sexual politics. I'm really sorry. Signed a lawyer, crossed out the name of the person. Who do you think? The real mistake of our left is that we underestimate the right. The right isn't as stupid as we'd like them to be. If only they were. If only they weren't so cunning, so sly, so smart, so aware of our shortcomings. And I just fear that political correctness is a weapon that they value. That the more we tell the world how people should be treated, how language should be treated, what words are acceptable, what attitudes are acceptable, what HR meeting is going to tell you in a long bullet-pointed list about how you look at people. All of this is meat and drink to bad people, to myself as well. Those bad actors in that sense, I mean bad actors in the other sense.
It's only a few minutes left, guys. Hang in there with me.
Say, area of
issues. It's very often phrases, jargonistic slogans, heteronormative, cisgender, those kind of things. They're just an insult you know, imagine you're a young student arriving at university and sort of bombarded.
I don't know who Jeremy Kyle is.
Hermeneutical nonsense
Don't hate me.
From misread textbooks and misread Foucault, when they say, misread Derrida, and so on. Because I was at Cambridge and doing English. We had our French phase, and there's value in that. He said that the ghost hovering over for me is, it's a letter Oscar Wilde wrote, and he said to Percy, he said, the fact that you didn't get a degree is nothing, but you never acquired what is sometimes called the Oxford manner, and I'll say for that, the university manner. He said, Oscar said, I take that to mean the ability to play gracefully with ideas. I think that's disappearing from our culture. I think it's a terrible.
Yeah, to have an actual engaging conversation with someone without it devolving into emotional responses or immediate offenses. I agree. We do need to be able to have open exchange of ideas, and it can get heated, but it doesn't mean we don't have to be disrespectful, but still be able to be honest with how we feel and still respect the person at the end of the conversation.
I'm not sure that we actually fall towards orthodoxies. I'm a heterodox and a contrarian, and I can't help myself. And I think there's been an underestimation of the fact that language does affect people. It does make the young, in particular, as they're starting out on their educational or their work careers, it makes them very anxious. It makes them very angry, very upset, very alienated, to feel that they don't know anymore how to operate in the world, how to engage in relationships, how to think honestly. So they accrete more and more to their own mini groups, and I think that's dangerous and unhappy for society. I think it's reflected in the paucity of cinema and literature and art and the culture generally, is that there's a fear that's pervading it. And while people can talk to academia and say, you should come and see our lessons, our lectures are open and free and ideas are exchanged, I'm sure that's true. I'm sure it's true, but I don't think we should underestimate how much this feeling is prevalent in the culture of this strange paradox that the liberals are illiberal in their demand for liberality. They are exclusive in their demand for inclusivity. They are homogeneous in their demand for heterogeneity, are somehow undiverse in their call for diversity. You could be diverse but not diverse in your opinions and in your language and in your behavior. And that's a terrible thing.
Yeah, it shouldn't just be like a visual thing.
So I'm sorry that it got a bit heated in places, because I was hoping it wouldn't. I was hoping it would be a shining example. Can speak with humour and wit and a lightness of touch, as G.K. Chesterton said. Angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. And I think it's very important for us, who are privileged, all four of us, privileged to be here, to be asked to be here, to take ourselves a little bit more lightly, not to be too earnest, too pompous, too serious, and not to be too certain. It's a time, I think, for really engaging, emotionally fulfilling, passionate and positive.
Well said. I'm not surprised though. He's a very intelligent man, and he's a very articulate man.
The kind of day-to-day, as I say, human resource departments of corporations, that sort of thing. So I was slightly disappointed that it just became a debate about race and about gender and so on. But that was, I guess, natural. And I still, the fact is, I'm still a lefty, but a soft one. I just don't have the gap between the personal and psychologist is one that is rarely explored. People are either so personal or they're so political, they forget the individual. And that's the space in which the impassioned liberal lives, and it's not easy to do it because you often do so unaware. You both to a well-earned. That
was cool. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Jordan Peterson though, but it's mainly because I think that he's a bit pompous, and he definitely got some psychological stuff going on too, with how he responds and gets kind of over emotional and takes things personally. But Stephen Fry he made a lot of sense, and I agree. I think that in a lot of senses, political correctness is just people have gotten more obsessed with the words and using the right words and phrases rather than trying to really just talk to each other, learn and educate. I feel like this was 5 years ago, that I feel like now, at least from an American sense, that the left has gotten very critical of anyone who might slip or anything like that, and kind of makes it difficult to even think about progress, you know, or even converse with people. They kind of write people off if they make a mistake or they do something wrong, or say the wrong thing in the wrong manner. Not that I think some languages, you know, or some phrases are actually offensive, but I don't think it's really the words so much that are the offense. It's more about the intent behind it, you know, who's saying it in what context, because words are just words, right? They're inanimate, and the same words can mean the same words and phrases can mean many different things depending on the context and how you're using them and things like that. So I'm just as guilty of it though, so really can't be too judgmental about it. Very interesting though. I'd be interested to watch that whole debate, but obviously I can't do it on the stream because it's way too long, but very interesting.